Hello, everyone, and welcome to the NanoReach podcast, a series where we learn about the life and research of the members of the Institute of Chemical Technology Mumbai's Nanomedicine Research Group, or NRG. I am your host, Sanjana Krishnakumar. My guest for this episode is Dr. Joydeb Mukherjee, a research scientist with the NRG who obtained a Ph.D. in chemical engineering from ICT Mumbai. So, why don't you tell us, me and your audience, about your association with the NRG?
Hello everyone. Basically, I have completed my PhD work in Chemical Engineering Department from ICT Mumbai under the supervision of Professor A.B. Pandit. So during my PhD time, I had heard about the Nanomedicine Research Group, and this group is very dynamic and enthusiastic in terms of applications-oriented research in the biological science and also the bioengineering. So during my PhD study, I had to work on microfluidics device. This is one kind of the device where the fluid is flowing to some of the microscale range for different chemical as well as the biological applications. Subsequently, my interest in the field of microfluidics has increased, and after completing my PhD work, I decided to explore this field, which can be useful for the biological concept. It can also be done as a biomicrofluidics phenomenon. So I had approached Dr. Prajakta Dandekar, who is the group leader of the Nanomedicine Research Group, on this topic, and because he's working on the microfluidics devices of organogy platform. This concept is very interlinked with biomicrofluidics devices, where the biological fluids and tissue engineering concepts are accounted for. Additionally, I'm also interested to do something which is related to some interdisciplinary field of research, where the chemist, biologists, physicists, and engineers come together and work on a specific interdisciplinary project. In my group, I'm working as a research scientist, and my research focuses on the computational modeling of the organogy platforms. Broadly, we can say that my work in this research group is related to some computational biology, where we solve some different mathematical model equations in terms of differential model equations, network models equations, cell-based model equations, and some of constraint-based model equations, and so on. So based on that computational modeling approach, we will design a prototype of organ-on-chip platforms like skin-on-chip platforms, lung-on-chip platforms, heart-on-chip platforms, and so on, and increase the process efficacy in terms of the various biological applications.
That's really interesting, sir. I mean, nowadays, if you look at people who are talking about scientific research that's going on around the world, you hear so many people talking about organ on a chip and how it is bound to reduce the ethical limitations that's caused by using
Yes.
animal models and so. So that's really
Yes.
interesting, and I think that's amazing. So, how is it that you got into research at all?
I'm interested in terms of that organogy platforms. Basically, I'm interested to do some work which is related to some of the transport phenomena in the organogy platforms and understand some of the interstitial fluid flow phenomena within each and how we can improve that platform based on that transport phenomena.
So, were you always interested in doing scientific research throughout your life, or is it something that developed a little later?
No, actually, since my childhood, life and work of great scientists like Albert Einstein, Sir Isaac Newton, and Professor S.N. Bose is a great physicist in India. Acharya J.C. Bose is a great botanist and also the physicist, had attracted my attention towards the exciting wonders of science. I started my educational career as a science student. Then I have completed my undergraduate degree in chemical engineering department and also the postgraduate diploma in energy management audit from Jadavpur University, and then completed a master's in chemical engineering department. After that, I have joined ICT Mumbai and do my research work and under the supervision of Professor A.B. Pandit. And then I have realized something which is very interesting in terms of that computational biology, and also the transport phenomena in biomedical flows, and microfluidics device for biomedical applications, and understand the impact of these works in terms of the societal relevance and healthcare industries. Then I wanted to move to this field and do some research where the chemical engineers can be combined with some of the biological field and to improve the biological process.
As you said, you did your PhD at ICT. So,
Yes,
what was it
yes.
that motivated you to want to pursue a PhD in the first place, and why did you choose ICT specifically?
First phase, I have to find out what is my interest regarding my. Then we have to realize that based on that interest, I have to move to choose my research topic and try to explore these research topics in terms of my interest. And some of the persons in India were basically inspired me. Someone is called Professor A.B. Pandit is one of the first my great mentors, and also the Professor Suman Chakraborty is the IIT Kharagpur, Dean and Mechanical Engineering Department. And one other professor is a Professor V. Kumaran, is a professor in the Chemical Engineering Department of Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. And this person are basically experts in the field of microfluidics and nanofluidics and biomedical engineering concept. So I have read many papers in the field of computational biology and this microfluidics and nanofluidics papers, and we have to understand how that this type of the work can be useful in terms of the societal objective on healthcare industries. And based on that, I have to choose my research topics, and after completing my PhD work, I have to move to this field and move to that different types of the research field that can be useful for the healthcare as well as the biomedical industries. You know that my research interest is very different when completed my PhD work in chemical engineering department and fluid mechanics applications. But these research topics are all our research topics are related to some of the healthcare industries and also that biomedical engineering concept. When that chemical engineering concept like the fluid mechanics, heat transfer, mass transfer, these are the concepts are basically the unit operations of the chemical engineering department. If you combine this concept with some of the biological field and you can understand how the biological process and how the physiological process can be improved in terms of that this type of the unit operations, and how can you improve the efficacy of the process by that biological process is considered, and also that can be useful for the point healthcare industries. If you consider for the point of care diagnostic devices, affordable point of care diagnostic devices is very useful, and also that how the biological concept can be useful, can be interlinked with some of that mechanical engineering problems like the fluid is flowing through some papers. If you consider some blood, and blood is flowing through some paper substrate, and then how the blood is moving through the paper substrate. If you understand the dynamics of the flow within the capillary, and then how this dynamics of the flow can be improved, and how we can improve the efficacy of the process in terms of the dynamics of the fluid flow within that process. Another concept is that I'm telling that another research interest in terms of that the transport and also the reactions process in the biological process. How this can be useful in the healthcare industry, how it can be useful in terms of that some of the societal relevance in the So if you consider for the transport and reactions process, this is also that the chemical engineering concept, the reactions process, or how the reactions takes place within that tissue, within our biological tissues, and how the reactions takes place within our human body. And if the reactions is considered, and then how the transport is takes place in terms of the advections concept, when the drug is molecule within our capillary, within our aorta, within our artery systems, how it will move, and how in terms of we can understand the movement of the drug molecules, and this drug molecule is moving and that touches to the solid tumors or another types of that tumors, and that this tumor can be cured by the using of the targeted drug delivery systems. So if you understand from the transport process and reactions process in biology, and also the medicine concept, where you can understand the transport phenomena, particularly the mass transfer phenomena and chemical reactions, when govern a great variety of the physiological conditions and of the pathological process. And we supplement in a non-trivial way in order to understand some of the organism development and also the species evolutions. So these are the concepts. So this concept may be useful. The engineering is interlinked with some of the biological process. That is many important things nowadays. This is all our engineering all of the fields are interdisciplinary way can be defined. And if you have to combine some different types of the process with some engineering aspect, and the process, the biologist can understand some biological process, and the engineers can understand how the biological process is going within the systems, how we can improve their systems in terms of that engineering aspects, and how we can understand some of the dynamics of the flow, how we can understand some dynamics of the heat transfer. If you consider for the microvascular heat transfer process, when that something skin, where the skin have some different types of the layers and the different temperature is considered. If you consider for the, if you apply some of the skin, some of that cosmetics over the layers of the skins at hot temperatures and hot weathers, and if you apply some of that different cosmetics over the skins at the cold temperature, how the microvascular heat transfer effect to diffuse the drugs within through the layers of the skins. So that's a very important thing nowadays, the microvascular heat transfer concept. So heat transfer is related to some of the chemical engineering as well as the mechanical engineering concept. Biologists can help to understand some of the how the skin is growing within the organ-on-chip platforms or within the systems, and how the heat transfer can be interlinked with some of the biological tissues and off, and we can improve that process in terms of the engineering as well as the biological aspects. So lots can be possible if you consider for the cerebrospinal fluids, that is called as the interstitial fluid within the brain. If you apply some of the drug within the brain, and the brain is a basically the is a very narrow domain in our human body systems. This is a narrow object, and if your fluid is moving within the systems, then how the fluid dynamics is moving within the systems, and how the interstitial fluid flow can be possible within the system. And this basically the fluid flow in our human body system is defined in terms of the blood flow. And if the blood is flowing within our human body system, how the blood is flowing in the human body system. If the drug is moving along the blood flow, then how the drug molecules moving within our human body systems, and touch to the different types of the tumors and some of the objects, and you can treat that objects using that targeted drug delivery systems. So that's a very diverse type of the research world, and you have to apply this research field in terms of that engineering, in terms of the biologist, in terms of the chemist, in terms of the physicist. So both the four type or five type disciplines are combined with each others and work together, and then understand then how the entire process can be improved, and how, because the physicist will understand how the physics of the flow will understand. The chemist will understand if the chemical reactions takes place with our biological tissues and how we can control that chemical reactions. And biologists will understand how the cells can be grow within our human body systems, and how the cells can be grow within our organ-on-chip platforms. And as an engineer can be helps to understand how to develop the design of the organ-on-chip platforms, where the cells can be grow, where the chemical reactions takes place, where the fluid flow is interstitial fluid flow is considered. And then four types of five types of fields can come together and understand the efficacy of the process in terms of various biological applications.
Absolutely. So my next question to you is, as you correctly said, it's to make impactful research. I feel it's so important for people from different disciplines to interact with each other and
Yes,
learn from each other. So the
yes.
thing is, I have noticed when people do research, you tend to go so deeply into your area of research. You become so specific and your area of research becomes so niche. So how can you actually take some efforts to make sure that you're connected to other kinds of research that is going out in the world? And also, how would you ensure that you know where your research fits into that?
Actually, every researcher, every as PhD student or every researcher should focus on his own problem. It's correct. It's very correct way. But we need to correlate this concept with some different types of the disciplines, because the entire process is not only based on that only chemical process, or not only based on that only biological process. If you understand biological process, some of chemical reactions can be considered, some of the transport phenomena can be considered. So each discipline should focus on each subject, and should correlate this subject with other disciplines, and that help to understand the entire overall process within our systems and within our bodies. Like as a chemical engineer, Chemical engineering would basically the focus on some of the different types of the subject like reactions engineering, fluid mechanics, heat transfer, mass transfer. So we should understand the basic principle of the fluid mechanics, heat transfer, and also the mass transfer. But we should correlate this basic principle with some biological process and understand that how the biological process can be improved in using that phenomenon. As a mechanical engineering, as a biologist, and biology should understand how the chemical engineering heat transfer takes place, how the fluid mechanics can be considered in order to improve that process. But the training will be different. As a student, as a chemist, the training is very different from the earlier stage. But we need to understand the basic principle. So the term will be different if you understand some basic principle. That is called if you understand some transport phenomena. So the chemist, biologist, physicist, as well as the engineers both are understand basically and will understand some transport phenomena. Transport phenomena means that if any fluids is transport or any mass is transport or any heat is transport under the from that higher side to lower side under the influences of the driving forces. So if you understand some the concentration gradient from the higher concentration to the lower concentration. So mass can be transferred. That is called as a mass transfer phenomenon. If you consider for the fluid mechanics concept, then when fluid is flowing within the higher pressure to lower pressures, because the fluid always be moved from that higher pressure to lower pressures. So the driving force of the pressures is related to some of that to transfer or to advect the fluid within the systems. So basic concept should be similar for all other disciplines, and that should be correlated with other disciplines and how this can be improved process. In basically our objective is to understand some of the entire process dynamics, the dynamics of the entire process. If you understand some dynamics of the entire process through different types of the unit operations, and these unit operations may be linked with some of the chemist, maybe linked with some of the biologist, maybe linked with some of the physicists, but all other disciplines come together and understand some each unit operations specifically and to improve that biological process in terms of different applications.
Thank you so much, sir. So, I also want to ask you, since a lot of our listeners are people who are pursuing their PhDs or people who want to pursue their PhDs, what advice would you give to people who are currently pursuing a PhD in order to motivate them?
The research is all about the exploring the unknown and seeking answer to questions that have not fully understood. The cultivate a sense of curiosity and be open to learning new things. So I would advise all PhD students and also all master students who are interested to PhD work and or too interested to some of research work to define the problem statement based on your research interest. This is very important things. Define the problem statement. If you want to move to the do the research, then you should define some your problem statement based on your research interest and remain focused. It's also essential not to lose patience, because patience is very important things to do some research work, because in related to some of the publications in the initial years of PhD might not always materialize as per your expectations. So we should make an effort to improve our analytical skills and to understand some of the problem statement based on our research interest. Because if you move to the different types of the another different types of the research field, and you have to do some research work based on your PI research interest, then it may be affected your research interest, and your research work should be defined based on your research interest. And after completing the PhD work, student can also be moved to that postdoctoral studies and other types of industrial work. And if you, as a master student, if you complete that master and then if you have some different types of that interest in terms of the research work, then you can easily move to the apply them PhD fellowships in which are available in India, and then move to that different institutes. No, actually, the research should be focused on that own problem statement. So if you have to, if any students have interested, suppose the one student have completed some of that 12th standard, and he is interested to do some research, interested to do some engineering and other chemist and biologist and things. So based on his own interest, the student should move to specific discipline and understand their work based on their interest. After that, he is interested to do some of that, completing some of the engineering, mechanical engineering. He is interested to do some work related to some of the computational biology. So you should understand some of the how the mechanical engineering concept can be combined with some of the computational biology. And based on that interest, they can easily move to that computational biology, and they understand so how basically they not do not understand the specific term of the biological, but they will correlate this biological concept with some engineering aspects. If you understand this biological concept with some engineering aspects, then you can easily understand some of the efficacy of the process and understand the entire process domain within that systems basically.
Nowadays, there are a lot of people out there who feel very discouraged from pursuing research because of how long it takes, or sometimes people feel that there is no money in it. But there are people out there who still passionately do research because they care about the work that they're doing. So, what is it that you like about your research?
The research is not related to some of the money. So if you have to passion about some research, then you should move this research field, because it's a very long time process to do some complete your research work, and get some different publications from that research work. So first, you have to do some research work with your interest. Then you should move to this research field. But in that case, nowadays the money is coming as a fellowships in the to this research students, but I feel that it's not related to that some of the money come. So if you have to interest to do something new, and you have to do something your interest, then you should move to that research field and then understand then how that research can be processed, and how you can improve that the analytical skills, because the skills is very important in order to complete our research work. You have to improve you have to do some of the experimental work. So the experimental skills should be very required for each student. If you have to do some of the computation as well, so different types of the softwares which are used to solve some of the different models and different some concepts, should understand this type of the softwares, and understand how we can use that software, what is the basic principle of that software, how the software can be useful to different types of the problem statement in the context of that some of the biological or chemical engineering and the mechanical engineering, other things. So skills are very important, and if you have to really interested to some research work, then you should move to this research field. Money is not related to that research field, because nowadays the money is coming, but it's very, I feel that not. So we should move to that, to these directions, and then you can understand.
Okay, sir. So my final question to you is actually, if you had the opportunity to meet your younger self before you started your PhD, what would you say to them?
Okay, so starting your study can provide you a time and experience advantage. So if you move to that, you have to start your research career at earlier stage. Then the time management is very important during the PhD study. So earlier you begin, the more time you have to gain knowledge and investigate various subjects which are related to your interest, based on your interest, and also on your the research abilities. And it's crucial to enjoy the process of conducting research, and to recognize your accomplishment along the way, because it's a voice of discovery. So first you need to move to that, you need to start your research career at the early stage. Then you have to gain some more knowledge and investigate various subjects and hone your research abilities. And this research ability helps to understand different processes, and also to understand some help to improve your discovery process in during your research field.
Okay, sir. So I'm very glad that I spoke to you today, and I hope that people who listen to this podcast actually feel inspired by
Act,
your
act,
journey and your
act,
research.
yes. Actually, we should understand some the how the interdisciplinary research can be combined with some of with each others, and how all our stages, all as a chemist, biologists, physicists, engineers, all are come together to this research group and understand some of the entire biological process and how we can improve that biological process using that different unit operations. Like physicists can understand some of the how the physics of the fluid flow. Engineers can understand some different unit operations. Chemists can be understand some of the chemical reactions within our human tissues, biological tissue phantom. So that's why we need to move different types of research uh, discipline and interdisciplinary type of the research work, and then understand um, the entire biological process through this concept.
I mean, yes, just because somebody has a degree in physics doesn't mean they can't contribute to biology or chemistry, right?
Yes,
Their knowledge
yes,
is
yes. You need
useful.
to understand this thing. Yes, you need to, as a physicist, as suppose you are the biologist. So you need to correlate so how the biological process can be correlated with some of the different unit operations. So basically, our process, all our process is based on the physical process. If you understand some physical process and through different concepts, like as a different unit operations, if you understand some fluid flow, this is also basically physical process. But this fluid flow, if the fluid flow is flowing within our biological tissue phantom, how the process can be defined. So as a physicist, you understands the fluid flow. As a biologist, you understands the biological process. So biology should correlate the concept interstitial fluid flow within the biological tissue phantom. Physicists should concept some biological terms and meanings where the biological tissue phantom and how the fluid is flowing within the biological tissue phantom should understand these things. So if you both are combined and then both work together, then understand the entire process. So we need to do not make any boundary of a subject. So should move to the different subjects, but should correlate this subject with different types of that applications. Because applications is
Absolutely.
more important. Yes, applications is more important. Suppose you are interested to do some of the cell biology related research. So how the cells migrations takes place within our human body systems. So if you correlate these things, if the cells is a deformable in nature, the cell wall will always be deformable in nature. It's not this consist of the cell membrane. When the fluid is flowing over the cell membrane, how the cell membrane deformations takes place under the influences of the fluid. So this is one kind of this concept that is called as a cell motility concept. The cell motility is understanding by is basically useful for the mechanical engineering concept. Mechanical engineering will understand how the cells can be moved within our human body system or within a human living arteries and outer systems. Biological understands how the cell membrane will behave under the influences of the biological force. So if you understand some mechanical force and you can understand some biological force and how the mechanical force can be combined with some biological force, then the mechanobiological concept can be useful to our human body systems. So chemical engineer will understand some mechanical force concept. Biologists will understand some biological force concept. So mechanical engineering, mechanical force and biological force both are combined with each other and mechanobiological concept should form. And based on the mechanobiological concept, we should understand the entire process, how the cell mechanics, how the cell motility will be considered within our human body system.
So,
So I'm just trying to say that the different of interdisciplinary research work can be possible through this domain. And if you have any students want to join to the energy groups and to do some research work from the different disciplines like chemical engineering, mechanical engineering, and they should correlate their subject with some different biological applications and to improve that biological applications using that concepts, that will be very nice in for entire research group.
sir, thank you so much for taking time out of your day and coming to speak with me. I really enjoyed getting to know about your research, and I'm sure that the people who are interested have also realized the need and importance of interdisciplinary research and surely feel motivated by the way you are pursuing yours.
Yes, thank you to everyone, and also thank you for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts in this platform. And then I feel that this can be useful for do some interdisciplinary research work for futures. Who are interested to do some of the research work in future and doing some PhD in energy group and other group in India.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the NanoReach podcast. Please follow us on YouTube and Spotify to listen to more of our researchers talk about their experiences at the NRG.